What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of the one and only Form Check Friday. It's a good thing. It's a nice day. It's a Friday, and we're here to check form because frick, that's what we do on Fridays, isn't it? Now, real quick housekeeping thing. If you're looking to submit for Form Check Friday, let me show you how we're going to do this. Bada boom. You come to calgarybarbell.com. You click on FCF right up here. And then there's this submission form here. So give us some details, attach a Google Drive link ideally, and also make sure you're going to give us some additional info and comments. Give me some context. Context helps so much, and then I can help y'all a lot better. One more quick thing before we get rolling. We're trying to make this thing happen. In the algo, we need your help. We need the boost. We're up against big bad YouTube telling us that our channel's dead, that we're washed up, that we'll never amount to anything, and we need you to step up, smash the like and subscribe, and click the bells and comment below and help us out, please. Anyways, all that insane tirade being over now, we're gonna get into the video. So, starting with Emil here. Now, we left off with Emil last time. And this is 187.5 kilos for a set of 5. He says he feels like he gets poor leg drive off the floor. He says it gets a lot better, you know, halfway up, a little further up in the range of motion. And he always fails it in the bottom. So he wants to know if that's due to biomechanics or whether that's due to, you know, something in his technique. And so here's what I think, Emil. Let's watch this one more time. I think we might be a little too upright when we're starting. I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing the shoulder blade kind of like behind the bar. And I think if you were slightly higher hipped, slightly less knees forward, and this is kind of the opposite of how I cue most people when it comes to deadlift coaching. If anybody's watched this channel, this is the opposite advice of what I normally give. But I think a little higher hips, a little knees further back, and a little more being forward over the bar. I think you've kind of taken the common cues and you've really wedged yourself like way back behind the bar, and that does create a real leverage challenge for you off the floor. I think that's what we're running into. I think if you fix those things, hopefully it's a lot easier off the floor for you. Our next lifter is Thomas. Thomas is going to be doing some bench here. All right, so now Thomas here is benching 70 kilos for 8 at 9. He says he's been lifting for a while, mostly a bro split. But he says one of the things that held him back for years with his progress was staying too lean, focusing too much on leanness, not allowing himself to eat any kind of surplus, gain any weight, anything like that. And he says he started doing some power building style training and, you know, started eating more. And he says he loves training now. So I'm really glad to hear that, you know, by sort of incorporating some powerlifting into your training and probably changing some of your nutritional protocol, right? Like, I think, you know, if you want to get strong, being in a surplus is a good thing, you know? So I'm really glad to hear that you've had some positive impacts from changing your training like that. Now, let's get into this bench press. He says he's looking for help with his setup and his tightness, and that the bar path in the past is specifically an issue. And again, you know, working on consistency, I think, was another thing he mentioned in the email. Now, one of the biggest things, the first things I notice here is that we have this sort of like toe pick, heel up kind of thing going on. And a lot of the times we sacrifice this lateral, this like side to side stability, so we can get a little thrown off from having specifically this foot position. So I might let your feet out a little bit this way to make sure you can get them flat down. That might give you a little bit more consistency with just your positioning and stability, which is going to make you feel more confident and probably, you know, help the whole thing. Now, the other big thing I'm seeing is how you're touching. It looks like a pretty heavy touch. It's kind of bounced off the chest just even slightly. And I think that if you were to work on controlling that touch and really trying to like almost cradle the bar as it comes to your chest, you know what I mean? Like you're almost reaching your chest up to the bar as opposed to the bar coming down to you. You're trying to really decelerate the bar is another thing that I often mention. There's a little 3D for you. Another thing I often mention. So trying to like really control the last inch or so that the bar is approaching your chest is so big when it comes to consistency. We might be loosening in the upper back and shoulder blades a little bit as we touch. We might be kind of allowing those to shrug up a little. And lastly, I had to say something. You got long arms here, man. Have you tried widening your grip? One thing with the bench, for us long-armed folk, trim that range of motion down. Try to get that grip out a little wider, and it may or may not be the thing for you. I've had and coached, I've had long-arm people on the show before. I've coached long-arm people. Widening the grip is not always, not 100% of the time is the answer, but a large amount of the time it is. So a little bit of a wider grip might be another key for you. I hope that helps, buddy. All right. Now, I hope everybody's ready because we're about to get into some big squats here. Our next video here comes from Josh. Now, Josh is obviously a very strong human being. This is him pause squatting 635 pounds for a single out of 7. That is a big old squat. And he's got a great mustache too. I gotta comment on that. So this is his top set of pause squats. And then I think he dropped and did mostly banded squats after this. So squatting against bands. And the reason that's relevant, we'll get to in a sec. So he says he's incorporating bands in a lot of his squatting to try to build speed, to try to build explosiveness, which if you look back at any of the old Conjugate and West Side type stuff, that was always their justification for using bands and chains. Ironically, I'm going to direct you right now over to my coach's YouTube, and you can go check out a video they did. Reactive Training Systems did a great video on bands and chains and why you might want to use them, some of the more common, more current sort of methodology and ideas behind using bands and chains. So if you're interested, go check that out. Now, he says he's not sure if he needs more auxiliary exercises. So I'm assuming by that you mean non-specific, non-competition movements, things like, lunges or leg press. That's where my head goes when I hear auxiliary. I would think there'd be a difference between accessory, which would be something like pause squats, and auxiliary, which would be much further from that. Anyways, he says he's open to form advice, feels plenty strong, but just not feeling like it's translating. Now, the reason I wanted to go over some of that programming stuff is because that's probably how I would tackle, if I was coaching this lifter. I'm looking at this squat. I'm seeing that he's very, very strong. He's built this squat up, and I don't see any big glaring issues or anything like that at all. So I don't think I would coach this lifter's technique or change it at all, at least not based on this squat. What I might do is look at the training protocol. So what he told me in the email was that he gets a single at 7, and then it looked like 2 to 4 sets of banded squats after this as his sort of back off. So he goes from this down to 500 pounds on the bar with about 100 pounds in bands for a double, and then 315 with 100 pounds in bands for some 5s. What I would probably do, my man, is I would just commit to doing some heavier volume with your pause squats. If this is your secondary day, I would do this pause squat single. I think that's great, brilliant strategy I'll often implement myself. And then I would actually do the doubles or triples and the 5s as pause squats with straight weight. Because I think what might be missing, and this is maybe conjecture, this is maybe running off of a lack of a full picture here in terms of your programming, but I think if we're really focusing on that top end, one of the reasons it might not be translating is because we don't have enough exposure to enough weight through the rest of the range of motion. When we have bands and chains, we are going to get some extra benefit for the top of the range of motion, but we don't necessarily get that same training effect at the bottom. We think about your squat, for example. You have 500 straight weight, 100 pounds on the bar. That's 600 pounds total. You could probably just take 600 straight weight and do that for a double, or even 585 and do that for a double, as opposed to using 500 at the bottom, which is not a lot of stress or stimulus from the bottom to about halfway through. Once the bands start kicking in, then it's 600 pounds. Now we've got some stress. Now we've got some stimulus. So you might just need to, think about the portions of the range of motion that feel iffy or off or like they're less strong, and try to focus in on those parts of the range of motion. Based on this pause squat, I don't think I see a real distinct sticking point or deceleration, loss of position, anything like that. So I don't know necessarily that pause squats would be the trick, but I would probably just commit to doing pause squats as the whole stimulus on this day, as opposed to switching to bands and then moving into something like top end overload. So I hope that gives you something to think about. Feel free to maybe join our Discord, and you can ask some questions in there, and we can chat maybe a little bit more. But Great squatting, dude. More than anything, just keep it up. And now we're going to get back to the best lift, which is the deadlift. And just real quick, check out how well fitted this shirt is. Wouldn't you just love a shirt that hugs your delts like this? It's nice and tight on the arms, but you know, hides your belly maybe if you're a 120, and has this nice fit, this nice material. You can probably pick one of these up if you went to calgarybarbell.com. I'm just saying. Up next is Cohen. Now, Cohen's doing some deadlifts, obviously. He's got 155 kilos on the bar for set 4. He says he's been training powerlifting for about 6 months, and he says that deadlift always feels awkward. Now, he says his max is 200 kilos. It's the most he's pulled, and he's having a really hard time with the slack pull and with feeling comfortable in his setup. I'm actually going to resize this window just slightly, because what we're going to do is we're going to let this one play, and we're going to let all of y'all out there go down into the comments below and let us know if you're seeing anything here that you think he could work on, that you think might be affecting his comfort level, his consistency, and leave that in the comments below. VLC really likes to just mess with me and resize these things one more time through. Let me see. Let me know if you see anything that might be affecting his deadlift here. And with that, we'll see you in the next one, YouTube. Make sure to hit those buttons. Make the algorithm serve us. Bye.